So today we're going to be taking a look at how to defend on the map Pearl. Yesterday, of course, we took a look at how to attack on the map, but today we'll be taking a look at how to defend this map. And if you haven't seen the video yesterday, probably go and check it out because it will give you some context as well for what I'm going to be saying in this video. But what we've got on the map currently is basically just some positions. The agents don't really matter, although I do think this would be a decent comp. But basically just kind of the idea of, where people should be playing, like kind of a general stance that you might want to use. Something like this early on, I think, could be pretty good overall. The reason that I think this stance is pretty good, as we'll get into it a bit more, is because, as I've mentioned before, defending B is going to be pretty hard, so you want to be pretty passive. You're probably going to be playing for retakes, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then you might want some Sentinel utility in here as well, but I think that this position that I have this Viper in is very good. You can check down here. As I said, I don't think this will be a super used part of the map, but also they can help support the B anchor player as well from this position. So I think that this position this Viper is in is a very good one because you can quickly get information of what's going on over here, whilst also being able to readily help on this B site as well. So I think that this is going to be a very powerful position indeed. And then because we have this powerful position, that allows us to set up in this kind of stance here, where the connections between these three players towards the A site are all very tight and all very well maintained, right? We have a nice little crossfire here potential for the Raze to swing off the Chaos contact. The same could be true with the Raze and Fade as well, right? This Raze can kind of jump between defending either side very easily and help out on both sides as well potentially, and so can be a help wherever they might be needed. And this is not maybe how you'd start the round, right? Maybe you'd start with more of a bit of an aggressive stance, right? And try and figure out exactly where they might want to go and feel the early pressure and destroy some early utility, something like this. But I think falling back into this kind of position is probably going to become somewhat standard, and I think this will give you a good baseline to kind of perform from. So with that in mind, let's take a look at this B site. And obviously what I said yesterday was defending this B site is going to be very difficult to stop people from actually getting all the way really up onto the site, because there is no choke point here to defend down B long. And so it is going to be pretty difficult. And really the only way, and that's kind of the reason that I have the chamber here, the only way to really like stop a push down here, I think, is with an operator. And even then, that's not really stopping a push. It's more like getting a kill and then playing for retake most likely, as the chamber TPs away after getting a kill, something like that. That is how I think you probably want to be defending on Pearl. That unless you have an op, it's going to be very, very difficult, and you should probably be playing for retake. And now I'm not going to mention too much specific utility, but I will just quickly mention a Viper wall across this B site, something like this, right? Just anything like this that goes across this whole area. This is why a big reason why I think Viper will be very meta on this map, is because you will probably want, or even to a certain extent need, this kind of wall to go in for a retake. And we can see that in round 10 here of Gen G versus V1 on Pearl, one of the earlier Pearl games there. You see that the chamber gets flashed off, and actually they have pretty much the exact setup I was talking about here, where they've got the Viper wall across here. You've got someone in this position. This chamber was back here and TP'd away. This is all very standard, I think, and will become very standard indeed. You see that an Astra wall goes up. They're going to get the spike down, but you can see that V1 here are going to play for that retake as Gen G kind of retreat, and I expect that this will happen probably quite a bit. They managed to get this first kill on the KO. We end up in a 4v5, and you see the Gen G just kind of all retreat back and just take their places back as far as they can, as they just play for this like full like hope to spam the spike type stuff going in on it. But we see the V1, they start putting up these smokes, right? They start putting up this retake wall, and I do think that this will become very, very normal as this goes on, as we'll see a lot of this, I think, going forward, that this will be kind of the standard way of playing this map. And you see that this is what's going to happen, where we get Xander there just fully smoking the spike as this chamber takes the fight, and unfortunately this Fade doesn't have enough bullets to manage to kill Xander there. And I think that this, as I said, will become really the new norm. It will become very, very standard for teams to do that and just play full retake and just smoke off the spike and try and stick the defuse. On the mid side of B, as I said, I don't think this will be used too much by the attackers overall. I think that this will kind of become like the mid of Icebox, really, where it may be every so often, maybe once a game, someone goes into this area as a full rush, but mostly this will be used for lurks and stuff like that. I don't really see, you know, most teams making this a focal point of their attack, and so that's why really you don't need someone to like fully watch it. You might even put like a bit of sentinel utility down in here somewhere as well, right, just to inform this person whether someone has actually come there or not. I think that will be very common as well, but basically you just need eyes, you know, just to watch has anyone actually come there, because I think it's going to become, you know, just very, very rare that people actually do that. Coming over towards the A site, let's first take a look at coming down A main, right? What if the attackers are just straight bombing it down A main, right? Let's say a 5-man rush comes towards you down here. What should we do? Well, in that instance, what you have obviously with this kind of setup here is, again, the raise and the fade are quite connected in this instance, and so, you know, might be able to create some sort of delay. But overall, if a 5-man push is coming fully towards you, right, what you probably want to do here is the raise and KO probably want to secure this area here towards ARP, make sure that there isn't anything coming actually from here, so that, you know, you have this area of map control for the retake ready for you to go. And the fade, you know, after trying to delay them with whatever utility you might have available here, should probably just be retreating and making sure that, you know, there's no real push coming in. These two just secure this, make sure that there's no push on them there, and then you set up for a pretty good retake. And we can see this kind of retake be successful in this round 6 here of the same game. As we see, they're actually going to play a very sort of passive setup, and even though they give up a ton of control, even giving up this area of mid here to this Astro Wall, you still have 2 lanes to retake from, and that I think is still a very big deal, as you will see in this, that even if kind of, you know, you lose control of mid as well, playing for retakes is absolutely fine, because you still have those 2 different angles that you can come from and cause your opponent some problems. So you see that's exactly what's going to happen, right? They play for this kind of more full retake. Here V1, they start to come in with the fade ult, and even though the Astro ult is up, right, they're gonna manage to find the trades and the kills that they need, and ultimately, you know, this is going to be a pretty easy win for them here on the defuse. And I think that this kind of thing, this kind of, you know, more retake oriented approach to the defensive side will become very, very normal indeed, and I expect that this will probably be one of the more successful ways of playing defensive side on Pearl. But now let's talk about getting aggressive on the defensive side of Pearl and talk about the merits of doing that. Well, one particular area that I think being aggressive might help, like just for like a one-off round on the defensive side, could be B long. One reason is that the defensive spawn barrier starts up pretty high, so you can catch your opponents off guard maybe with how far you can push early on. And because the attackers might get used to, you know, this being pretty free and just walking down and waltzing down to site, you know, by having a stack here, like 3, maybe even 4 players, you know, being aggressive down B, that could catch them off guard pretty easily if they just think that they can just walk down for free. So being aggressive on B might have some merits to it, although I wouldn't make it kind of, you know, the foundation of your game plan. We can see this happen in the game Sonics versus Zero Marksman, where actually Sonics on the defensive side, you will see, do decide to get pretty aggressive. As you can see, they get the snake bite here. They have 3 players. This is actually on the defensive pistol side. But, you know, early on trying to set the tone maybe that they are going to fight this area, right? And just try and set that tone that they do want to fight and that this won't be free like, you know, maybe Zero Marksman were expecting. And so I think that this kind of idea overall might be a pretty good one to, you know, just throw in there every so often, you know, just get aggressive down towards B. What about being aggressive in mid though? Well, when it comes to being aggressive in mid, I'm not as big of a fan of it. The reason that I'm not as big of a fan is because I actually think you're giving up quite an advantage here, right? As I've said, crossing this choke point here is going to be quite difficult. And even this on the A side as well, you know, this is some narrow spaces where you might be able to find kills. I mean, even if the attackers, you know, end up pushing towards site, maybe you can find a flank and a free kill from that as well. You know, these are some tight areas that aren't going to be easy for the attackers to push through already. So I feel like you're giving up that advantage by maybe pushing out of mid. Now, I think one thing you might be able to do when it comes out pushing mid is, let's say that the opponents were going for a full rush B, and you know, the chamber for this instance, you know, managed to see that, yeah, they're all coming B, right? It's a big rush down B. Then maybe, you know, following out of mid quickly, that could be one potential avenue you do want to go to try and get a fast flank off. But other than that, I don't really think that pushing mid is really the best idea, because I feel like oftentimes it will just give up an advantage that you actually have, even on a save. And we can see this happen in the Sonic Zero Marksman game as well, where Sonics on their bonus round here are going to try and get aggressive with this Viper wall across mid, you can see. But you can see that the attackers have kind of already breached that wall. They're already kind of through it. And really, they're just going to get destroyed here in mid. You see that Zero Marksman get the first kill, and the whole setup from Sonics falls apart pretty early. But you'll see that the success that Sonics managed to get actually comes from falling back into mid and this KO coming on a reflank, which I think, again, this is like an advantage you have that, you know, when the attackers do try to come out here, you see that KO is going to throw a flash and come behind them and manage to get 2 kills for Sonics, right? And I think that this is just a big advantage that you lose if you are going to try and push mid, that, you know, you can get some free kills like the KO just did right there if you decide not to push instead. But what about being aggressive on A? Well, I do think that some kind of coordinated push here to try and, you know, see if you can get any kills in this kind of area and have a fight here could be absolutely fine. But then if it is just like a solo push A, and I should have mentioned this about B as well, really, is that once you get to kind of this point here and you cross this threshold, there's really no reason that if you were like walking towards B here, there's no reason why someone couldn't just come behind you and have a free kill on you, right? And the same is true for B, that if you, you know, do walk all the way out here and come down here, there's no reason why someone, you know, can't walk behind you and just find a free kill on you there from the attackers. So there is like a risk with this, that if you are going to go exploring, you know, you could just be reflanked, or there could just be someone holding you in like a weird angle, right? Like if you just walk past here and someone is just in this corner, for instance, you know, there is some weird things that might happen if you decide to try and do that. And so I think that most likely what you're probably better off doing is, if you do want to go for like a push down A, make it a coordinated team push, and then if no one's home, right, if there is no one here, then maybe just go for a fast rotate and try and go, you know, see where the attackers really are and try and just catch them off guard that way. And so that was how to defend on Pearl. I hope you enjoyed it, hopefully learned something as well. And so with that, have a really nice day.